At 6:36 on a Tuesday evening, my wife called, and the moment I heard her voice, I sensed something amiss. Not the usual kind of trouble like an accident or bad news, but a tone that suggested she had practiced her words so often they sounded scripted, unreal. "Hey, darling," Heather greeted, her voice artificially cheerful. "I'm going to be late again, exceeding my hours at work. You know how busy it gets this time of year in the office." I reassured her, "Don't fret, your family is aware of your dedication." There was a brief silence, slightly longer than usual. "What do you mean?" she inquired, and her voice had transformed completely. The cheerfulness vanished, fear took its place, edging towards panic. "I expressed exactly what I meant," I replied. "Don't worry, everything is fine." After ending the call, I slumped back in my chair, gazing at the kitchen ceiling of our home on Ferndale Court, Naperville, Illinois. My mind drifted to the past 7 months, marked by unpaid overtime, regular late nights on specific weekdays, and a wife gradually transforming into an unfamiliar person. Before I divulge what followed, let me introduce myself. Travis Mercer, aged 38, a structural engineer at a mid-sized firm in Chicago's western suburbs. A man who pays taxes promptly, maintains cars' oil changes on schedule, and never forgets anniversaries, birthdays, or anniversary dates of birthdays. I'm not extravagant. I'm not typically viewed as exciting according to most definitions, but I was, or rather once was, unwaveringly devoted to the woman I wed, Heather, and I crossed paths at the University of Illinois in Champaign during our junior year. She majored in marketing, while I was overwhelmed by coursework on structural analysis and barely functioning as a human being. In a sociology elective I took to fulfill a humanities requirement, she sat beside me and asked if she could borrow a pen. When I lent her the pen, she inquired about my major, and upon learning it, she chuckled, saying, "That sounds grueling." And that was how it all started. We dated throughout our college years and 2 years beyond. We got engaged on the rooftop of a restaurant in Lincoln Park. Our wedding took place at her parents' residence in Barrington, in the backyard beneath strings of white lights, with around 80 spectators present. Her mother wept. My father delivered a speech that ran over by 7 minutes. 4 years following our wedding, we bought a house in Naperville. We frequently discussed children, anticipating our future together. Every Friday, when work permitted, we enjoyed date nights. Sundays were filled with traditions. Our humor dated from 2011. Our life flowed smoothly. However, approximately 14 months ago, subtle changes emerged. This narrative is bound to take a somber turn before reaching its brighter aspects. If you've read this far, click the subscribe button immediately. Leave a comment below expressing your thoughts on my decision, and share this video with anyone experiencing similar hardships. Now let's return to our topic. Initially, the changes were minor. Heather resumed her gym visits before work, an action unexpected due to her 3-year absence from gyms and her open hostility towards early mornings. This didn't raise many concerns initially, as people often change their habits or rekindle health commitments. I praised her effort. However, the gym bag returned home consistently without any signs of exercise. No sweat, no odor, and everything kept tidily packed. Although I observed this, I remained silent, assuming there was a rational explanation. Perhaps she was showering at the gym, engaging in light workouts, or perhaps my suspicions were unfounded due to work-related stress. Regardless, I was skilled at devising plausible explanations for such situations, a talent honed over many years of long marriages. You develop an instinct to assume the best about people so consistently that it becomes a knee-jerk reaction, and eventually, you find it challenging to distinguish between giving your partner the benefit of the doubt and deceiving yourself for their sake. Then there was the issue of her phone. Heather had never been secretive about her phone in the past. We weren't the kind of couple who checked each other's messages, but we also didn't feel compelled to hide anything. Her phone would be placed on various surfaces like the counter, coffee table, and nightstand without raising any suspicion. However, something shifted around last spring. The phone was always turned face down. It was constantly with her. Whenever it buzzed and she looked at it, her facial expression would display a complex emotion for a brief moment before regaining its normal composure. She began taking calls in the laundry room. She started texting in the bathroom while the door was closed. I reassured myself by thinking, she's planning something, a surprise. Her mother's birthday was approaching. For 4 months, our anniversary was upcoming. I believed she was arranging something with her friends until one evening when I entered the kitchen to find her on the phone, whispering, "I have to go, he's here." Then in a completely different tone, she said, "Yes, Mom, I'll sort it out." She turned and smiled at me, but there was something off about it. It's been 8 months since then. Since that moment, I began observing more attentively, not paranoid or obsessive, just truthful. I allowed myself to observe what was truly in front of me rather than the favorable version. The overtime started 6 weeks later, initially once a week. Heather worked as an account manager at a digital marketing agency downtown Naperville on Jefferson Avenue, merely 5 minutes from our house. Her firm did well, and there were indeed busy seasons, and at first, the overtime was justified. Initially, weekly meetings turned into bi-weekly ones and later thrice weekly. These occurrences always took place on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes Fridays, our usual date night, which gradually shifted more frequently. She'd call between 6:30 and 7, consistently with the same upbeat tone I had grown accustomed to deciphering. "Running late again, honey? The Morrison account is demanding." No need to stay awake. Instead of reassuring her with "don't worry," I began responding with "got it," and then spending time in the kitchen after hanging up, engaging in an activity I had been trying to avoid for months, calculating. The gym bag left dry, the phone face down, the sound of "he's here," followed by a discussion about her mother. The exact evening she was unavailable on a weekly basis. For 6 months, her paycheck, which I used to see occasionally before direct deposit, didn't show a single overtime hour. As a structural engineer, understanding load distribution and stress points is crucial to my career. It became clear that the math wasn't adding up. I feel it's necessary to clarify the difference between real-life situations and their portrayal in movies or on TV. In films, the suspicious spouse transforms into an obsessive detective, setting up complex surveillance systems, hiring experts, and confronting their partner dramatically in public with a spectating audience. However, that wasn't my experience. Life unfolded gradually, quietly, and painfully, devoid of any theatrical flair since drama provides clarity through its structured narrative. Drama delivers a villain, a victim, a moment of truth, and an eventual resolution. In contrast, real life offers the prolonged amassing of minor discrepancies that one must address daily. I endured these for 7 months. Each morning, I'd awaken next to my spouse, concocting a tale about the previous day that brought understanding. The gym bag was dry because she discovered a means to reconcile with the showers there. The phone was face down because she sought to be more mindful. She worked late due to the agency's demanding year and her ambition and drive, which I should encourage rather than sabotage with my self-doubt. I frequently concocted narratives in my mind, often accepting them as truth, which was essential for me to maintain a sense of normalcy. However, the analytical part of my mind that scrutinizes structure remains active at home, silently processing information and making calculations. Each time I dismiss a worry, it merely logs the dismissal and moves on to the next piece of data. The numbers didn't align. The difficulty with uncovering potential infidelity is that there's no prelude to help you prepare. You can't confide in friends because you lack concrete evidence, appearing paranoid instead. You can't inform family as once spoken, those words cannot be unsaid. You can't approach your spouse for fear of falsely accusing or prematurely revealing your suspicions with insufficient proof. Consequently, I end up alone with my doubts. You ponder in solitude, contemplating that the individual who knows you best might be spending their evenings with someone else while you're apart. As you share a bed at night, you trace their face outline in the dark, reminiscing about the conversations spanning 11 years and trying to differentiate the authentic ones. This thought leaves an imprint within you, one that I doubt ever entirely fades away. I feel it necessary to clarify that I did not engage a private investigator. My explanation stems from the fact that many people assume this action is the logical next step. But in my profession, we validate our assumptions, analyze details ourselves, and scrutinize numbers personally. Instead, I opted for vigilance. I began observing patterns in the overtime calls, noticing they came on Tuesday, Thursday, occasionally Friday, but never Monday or Wednesday. The consistency itself was revealing. Authentic work emergencies don't adhere to a routine. They don't conform to a weekly cycle, nor do they consistently occur on specific days, implying a scheduled appointment rather than an urgent predicament. Furthermore, I observed that when she returned home from overtime, she exhibited a distinct change in demeanor, not the exhaustion one would expect after putting in extra hours at work. Instead, she seemed unwound, sometimes even excessively so. The kind of unwind that comes from spending a few hours in a comfortable and enjoyable setting, with enough time to mentally prepare for returning home. She'd enter, give me a peck on the cheek, inquire about my evening, pour herself a glass of wine, and spend an hour on her phone before retiring to bed on the couch. The entire scene felt like observing a skilled actress portraying my spouse. The Thursday that marked a turning point began just like all the others. On that particular day, though it wasn't usual, I was working from home, a practice more frequent since my office switched to a hybrid schedule. In the rear part of my house, I was engaged in computation tasks for a project located in the western suburbs, when at 6:42 in the evening, Heather's visage appeared on my screen via call. I had an inkling of what she would communicate, as I had been aware of it for about 2 hours. At 4:15 that afternoon, I received a message from Ryan, Heather's younger brother with whom I shared a close bond. His text read, "Hey buddy, are you and Heather attending Mom's event on Saturday? She hasn't responded to the group chat all week." In response, I typed, "Yes, we will be present." "I've been working late quite often this week," Ryan replied. "She's usually working late. She had planned to have lunch with me on Tuesday but canceled that morning." The complexity of the situation became apparent to me as if viewed from an outsider's perspective, Ryan's perspective specifically, whose lack of suspicion made certain aspects noticeable that I hadn't fully acknowledged before. It wasn't because Ryan was suspicious, but due to the conspicuous pattern I had been trying to rationalize. For 2 hours, I pondered this revelation. When Heather called at 6:42 to inform me she would be late, another overtime night, you know the drill, a decision crossed my mind. Here's what I feel needs careful explanation because people will have strong opinions about my actions. One, I made a conscious choice to confront the issue directly, adhering to my belief that disputes between individuals should be resolved privately and honestly, without unnecessary drama. Two, I understand that my approach may elicit strong reactions from others, but I prefer handling matters without theatrics or performances. I was brought up with these values, and I hold firm to them regarding how things should function. For quite some time, I've been trying to tackle the issue at hand. I voiced my concerns, asked about the gym, delicately pointed out our decreased interactions, and even expressed my feelings one evening in March, expressing that I felt a change between us and was concerned for our relationship. Each time, Heather either diverted, dismissed, or countered with accusations that I was insecure or stressed. Her persuasiveness made me question myself, leading me to believe her. However, when she phoned on Thursday evening, something within me reached its breaking point, not in anger or a dramatic meltdown, but calmly and decisively, this is over. In a group chat with Heather's family members' parents, brother Ryan, Aunt Carol from Evanston, and cousin Priya, who was like her childhood best friend, people who cared deeply for Heather, people who believed they knew her well, I received a call stating that she would be working overtime again. Upon this information, I booted up my laptop to view the live company webcam on her agency's website. The camera, meant for client transparency, showed the office where Heather was supposedly working late hours. Finding it empty, I captured a screenshot of the usual spot where she sat. I then typed in the group chat, "Hey all, Heather mentioned she'd be working late again. Here's the office webcam. Can anyone confirm her presence?" Attached was the image I had taken. 6:49 p.m. Thursday, I messaged. Time stamped. Her desk has been vacant for an hour. Thought it was important the family knows about her overtime. After sending, I placed my phone on the kitchen counter and waited. It took around 11 minutes for the group chat to go chaotic. Ryan was the first. "Wait, what? That's definitely her desk." "Where is she?" Then Linda, usually slow in responding, asked. "What does this mean?" Travis from Evanston followed suit. "Is everything okay?" Ryan repeated his question again. Priya didn't respond. My phone rang 4 times within 8 minutes, calls from Ryan, Linda, and then another from Priya. I ignored all the calls. Instead, I sat in the kitchen with a glass of water, waiting. At exactly 7:02 p.m., Heather called. On the second ring, I picked up. She was clearly distressed, unprepared for the situation. The calm she had carefully cultivated over months had crumbled completely. Travis, she wasn't her usual self. Her voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard before. "Travis, what have you done?" I replied. "I showed your family where you were supposedly working." "Or not working," I added. "You should clarify it was a misunderstanding." The words tumbled out, quick and sharp, like she was juggling understanding, control, and deception all at once. "Tell them the webcam had a delay or something. Tell them you were confused." I won't do that. Travis, please. Then came a sound in her voice I hadn't heard in a long time, something fragile and raw. Please consider your actions. I have been considering them, I said, for around 7 months. Pause. Where are you? I questioned. She remained silent. Heather, where are you now? More silence. And then the softest voice I'd ever heard from her. I'm at the Hilton Suites on Ogden Avenue. I drove past that hotel 300 times. For how long? I asked. Travis, for how long? Another pause. 7 months, she whispered. 7 months. The gym bag, the turned-over phone, 3 weeknights, everything. A meticulously kept alternate existence mirroring mine for precisely 7 months without a single truth spoken. Is it someone from your workplace? I inquired. She paused. Yes. Does anyone else know? She claimed ignorance. She suggested they'd been cautious. She started to say more. She hinted at her discontent. She implied she was trying to find the right words to tell me. But I instructed her to return home. And I ended the call. My hands remained calm as I placed the phone back on its cradle. The group conversation continued. Ryan had contacted Linda, and Linda apparently contacted her spouse Gary, who tended to show worry through rage based on the group chat. He was greatly concerned. Priya messaged me privately asking if she could call later, and I declined for tonight. I stayed in the kitchen until I heard the car return home. 7:31 p.m., the garage door swung open. Heather stood in the kitchen doorway, her expression mirroring someone who'd witnessed a building collapse and was just realizing its absence. There was no trace of anger on my face, for I had been simmering with it privately for months. By the time she entered that room, my anger had dissipated. I had moved beyond it, finding myself in a tranquil, chilly space, an oddly serene clarity enveloping me. We settled at the kitchen table, a piece we'd selected together with her mother 4 years prior from an estate sale in Wilmette. For 3 hours, we conversed, not the conversation that mends, but one that acknowledges the fractures. She informed me that Dalton Pierce was his name, a senior account director at their agency. It began in fall when they were working late on a pitch together, and gradually things escalated, just like how all awkward cliches seem to happen. She disclosed she didn't know how to terminate the relationship or inform me about it. Eventually, she confessed her feelings for me. I listened attentively, asked necessary questions, and when we had covered everything that transpired during the past 7 months, I requested her to find another place to stay temporarily. She cried, questioned if this was indeed the end, and inquired if there was any hope. I responded that I wasn't sure. I stated my requirement for solitude, eschewing the facade of normality for a relationship that had been an act on her part for 6 months. She phoned her cousin Priya, who arrived and picked her up at 10:45 p.m. I remained by the window as I watched Priya's car leave, lingering long after the taillights vanished. I feel compelled to discuss Dalton Pierce briefly since people often inquire about him. That night I searched for him online. Naturally, I did so. He was 34 years old, had worked with the agency for 3 years, and resided in a condo in Lysol. His LinkedIn profile portrayed him as enthusiastic about constructing resonant brands. His Instagram consisted of carefully arranged photos of gym sessions and weekend visits to Milwaukee breweries, revealing much but nothing at the same time. I did not contact him. I didn't pay a visit to the agency. I didn't send him a message. I wish to make it abundantly clear on this point. Dalton Pierce might have been either innocent or guilty, but he wasn't the root cause of my predicament. He merely manifested as a symptom. The real flaw lay in the relationship itself, in its foundation, in the two individuals who ceased to be truthful with each other about something significant and allowed a chasm to grow, filled with silence, until another element moved into that void. I'm not justifying his actions with this statement. Rather, I'm expressing my belief that there is a trap in such thinking, as it allows you to divert your energy from the difficult question. What was already fractured before they came into the picture? That's the question I've been grappling with for 9 weeks. The family discord was an unexpected fallout, even though I had instigated it myself. Linda called me at 8:15 the following morning, which for her was akin to calling at 5 a.m. to her credit. She wasn't defending Heather. Instead, she was filled with guilt and sorrow. She expressed remorse for her daughter's actions with deep, heartfelt regret, a sentiment often expressed by parents who genuinely feel ashamed of their child's decisions. Uncharacteristically reserved, Gary phoned later and merely conveyed his apologies, emphasizing the bond he had always felt towards me as a son, admitting his confusion about what to say. I acknowledged his feelings and appreciated his sentiments, clarifying that this situation wasn't about them. Ryan was hit hardest in a distinct manner. He had known me for 11 years, had been at our wedding, attended football games with me, borrowed my truck when he needed to move things, and sought my advice on his own relationships. On Friday morning, he texted, "I'm really sorry, man. I don't even know what to say. Are you all right?" I assured him I was fine, assuring him I would find a solution. Priya reached out twice, showing caution as people do when they are close to both sides of a rift. She inquired about my well-being. She didn't stand up for Heather or criticize her. Instead, she offered support when asked. The truth about experiencing such widespread exposure is that it doesn't bring the comfort one might expect. I feel compelled to admit this honestly. In sending that group chat message, I was searching for transparency among a greater number of people than just myself. I had been shouldering this burden alone for so long that I yearned for its existence beyond my own mind. Yet once it became public, the moment I saw Ryan's responses and Linda's inquiries, Gary's worry, I experienced an emotion I hadn't anticipated. Sorrow, not pride, not validation. Simply the loss of a construction that had taken 11 years to build, sitting there publicly and indisputably in our family group chat. Heather remained at Priya's for 5 days. During that period, our texts primarily focused on practical matters, and there were 2 calls that proved tougher than anticipated as she seemed genuine, not acting. It was her, the woman I knew before, regardless of what transpired between us. For 5 days, I followed my usual routine when pondering, working, running, and visiting Fox River in the evenings to sit by the water, engaging in a form of quiet nothingness that is profound when one's mind needs guidance. I communicated with only 2 individuals during that week. One was my elder brother, Daniel, residing in Indianapolis, with whom I can discuss anything at any hour. The other was my father, who, at 67, has faced enough life to grasp that most situations are more intricate than they seem from an external perspective. My father advised me on the 3rd night that resonates daily since. "Travis, no matter what you choose, ensure it's a decision you make consciously. 1, the circumstances shouldn't dictate your actions for you. Avoid staying idle due to inactivity and fleeing due to frustration. Once you've clarified your desires, clarity follows." 2, I pondered on that statement for quite some time. By the 6th day, Heather returned home to collect more belongings, and we found ourselves once again seated at the kitchen table. This conversation differed significantly from our first encounter. Instead of dwelling on past events, it focused on what was to come next. She disclosed that she had ended her relationship with Dalton, quit her job at the agency immediately, and was leaving the building without any intention of returning. She acknowledged her mistakes and expressed that she would spare me from further explanations or justifications since she felt they weren't worthy of my time. She inquired about giving our relationship another try. I replied that I wasn't sure. I confided that I needed more time than she may have wanted me to need. She promised to wait. She said that she would prove herself or walk away, but either way, she would wait. 9 weeks have passed since our conversation. I can't assure you that everything is now resolved, as it isn't. Nor can I claim we are living blissfully ever after, as the future remains unclear to me. However, I can disclose that Heather and I attend counseling sessions twice a week with Dr. Patricia Wolfe, located on Washington Street in Naperville. This therapist doesn't allow us to shirk our responsibilities. She calls out both my habit of avoiding problems rather than addressing them and Heather's past choices that didn't involve communicating with me. The sessions are challenging, as honesty usually is. In one session during week 3, Dr. Wolfe asked me to pinpoint in detail the last time I felt genuinely understood by Heather, not just valued or loved in a vague sense, but truly seen. For nearly half a minute, I struggled to respond, needing to delve beyond the 2-year mark for an answer. Dr. Wolfe remained silent, her silence speaking volumes. In another session, she posed the same question about me, which left Heather in tears for approximately 2 minutes before she could reply. She revealed that she felt overlooked by me during the year I was engrossed in a significant project in 2022. A period where I was physically present at our house but mentally preoccupied with bridge calculations, load tolerances, and permit deadlines. It appeared as though she had attempted to communicate this to me, but I hadn't listened, and eventually she gave up. I'm at a loss about how to handle this situation. I'm still grappling with what to do about it. Since on one hand, her words resonated with me, acknowledging the reality that I had been distant during that year without fully admitting it to myself. Instead of trying to become visible to another person when feeling unseen, express your distress and need for support to your partner plainly and consistently. Unfortunately, she didn't respond, leaving me sitting opposite a stranger in a beige office on Washington Street, questioning if 11 years of something genuine is worth the effort required. The insights I gained from those sessions, not about Heather individually, but about our relationship dynamic, about how we had both been silently neglecting each other's needs without verbalizing it, surpassed what I learned in the preceding 3 years of marriage. This isn't to justify her actions. They were not acceptable. However, determining whether something broken can be fixed or if it should be discarded requires understanding its failure. That's where I stand now, unsure which applies to this case. Here's what I do know. The man who initiated a family group chat that Thursday night and hit send wasn't motivated by malice or retribution. Instead, he was a man who had endured 7 months of deception and needed the truth to reside beyond himself before he could decide his next move. Was it the correct action? This question has haunted me daily since then. Ryan still contacts me weekly. Linda sends me meals. Gary barely speaks to Heather since the incident, which is significantly less for him. And Priya is handling the situation with the delicate finesse of someone who cares for 2 individuals in pain. Heather is employed at a recently established firm in Oakbrook, commuting about 40 minutes each way. Every morning she sends me a text. She doesn't request anything. Rather, her presence is constant, reminiscent of those who selflessly offer themselves after realizing they've damaged something significant. I am yet to label it forgiveness or move past it entirely. Instead, I acknowledge the truth. My indecision persists after a year. This indecision isn't indicative of weakness. Rather, it demonstrates resilience in facing uncertainty and continuing to carry on. As my father often said, I am choosing, not allowing the situation to dictate for me. Whatever choice I make will be genuine and mine. That much is certain. Following Heather's revelation, another message arrived in our family group chat, a text from Ryan. He shared an image of a man seated in a chair, subtly nodding, his face offering no clue. Beneath it, he messaged, "You are among the most patient individuals I've encountered. However, patient might not accurately describe you. For 7 months, I harbored a secret because I lacked sufficient evidence. I endured until I had indisputable proof. Then I presented it to those who deserved to witness it. It wasn't about causing harm, but the option of continuing to bear it alone was unbearable. And I'd been carrying it alone for far too long. There exists a principle in structural engineering. A structure can withstand immense strain before collapsing if the pressure is evenly distributed and proper support is provided. But if the pressure is centralized, hidden within one point without escape, the collapse when it occurs is devastating. For 7 months, I had been the sole load-bearing point for a secret that wasn't mine to bear. When I dispatched that communication, my intention was merely to share the burden. The fate of the structure post that event, whether it stands or collapses, is another issue, and I'm yet to ascertain the solution. What struck me most about Travis's narrative wasn't the act of deceit, nor the group chat incident. It was his 7-month-long struggle with a secret that wasn't his to hold in the first place, and I believe many of us do this. We internalize others' dishonesty, and irrationally, we attribute the blame to ourselves when we decide to address it. This isn't true. Remaining quiet doesn't safeguard a relationship. It merely provides more ground for untruths to flourish. If this tale resonated with you, share your feelings in the comments. I read each one thoroughly, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you'll want to because we're just warming up.